안녕하세요. Hello, good morning. Let me start with three scientific points. And a study states that the more your level of Facebook addiction, the lower your brain volume. Results indicate that most people switch between different content every 19 seconds in order to experience a neurological high. Research has found that when pairs of strangers were asked to have meaningful conversations, their capacity to connect was reduced significantly if a mobile phone was visible. In light of these empirical studies, I started my philosophical research asking myself this question: does digital technology make us better? In order to answer it, I formulate two theses on digitalization. The first is that digitalization is it's a kind of de facto government, a digitocracy. The second is that digitalization tends to animalize man. It tends to turn man into an animal digitalis, a digital animal. I will present now my first thesis. Digitocracy uses basically two kinds of technologies in order to rule over us: technologies of reputation and technologies of search, according to a distinction made by Professor Frank Pasquale. So, the first, technologies of reputation, evaluate us, score us, and judge us. They present us in front of the others as information mediated by algorithms. They analyze information and evaluate the individual in any field and for any purpose concerning credit, health, work, or even inclusion in a police file. Big tech companies and governments use them. With respect to governments, Chinese social credit probably strikes to be the best example of this. These technologies have made certain countries, particularly in Asia, to be much more efficient in the fight of SARS-CoV-2. This digitalization, I would say, is the one oriented towards the old dream of the Enlightenment of a more efficient and organized society. However, these technologies have another use. In most of the world, these technologies are more oriented towards economic profit than to state control. Big tech companies use them to know their users and to extract more money from them. The second kind of technologies are those of search. In the words of Frank Pasquale, with these technologies, tech companies produce the world that they want to show us. A world presented through digital technology devices, of course. The world presented to the individual is completely personal because technologies of search rely on reputation. According to all they know about us, they can show us what we will like more or better, what will make us more glued to the screen. Reputation allows technologies of search to be to be very efficient in the purpose of catching and keeping the attention of the user. Technologies of search are more linked with attention economy than with the desire to organize society. Let me present an example of these technologies, reputation and search. When you enter YouTube, an avatar, a virtual self, a virtual version of you, is triggered, it's open, and that version keeps record of all the videos you have watched, and that is the reputation aspect. But YouTube shows you those videos you will like most, trying to keep your attention, trying to keep you hooked to the screen. And that is the search element. So as you see, we can say that digitalization has two phases. One phase is the ugly phase of scoring and judging, and the other is the sweet phase of giving us what we are supposed to want. I would say this algorithmic mediation poses a threat to our knowledge. Technologies of reputation, on one hand, have many problems. At least we can say data selection, its veracity, algorithmic bias. However, we can add another problem that it's more deep, a deeper problem. Can a person's identity be reduced to numbers and data? Technologies of search are also a problem to our knowledge. I would say they are a problem to our common sense. Common sense, what is common sense? I think common sense ensures that we perceive the same object that other people perceive. Therefore, we know the object is real. From this affinity arises the sense of reality, according to Hannah Arendt. But what kind of common reality is possible if reality is personalized through digital technology? This form of government, I would say, is in a sense an absolute form of government. Let me tell you why I think this is a form of an absolute form of government. Because rulers make the ruling devices, but knowing the danger of those devices, they exclude themselves from the influence of those devices. And they educate their children tech-free. So they act exactly as a tyrant that excludes himself from the ruling devices he uses, like a statute law. So that is a main feature precisely of an absolute government that is excluding itself from the rules it uses to rule over people. So that is my point about digitocracy and about my first thesis on digitalization. So let me present to your consideration my second thesis that asserts that digitalization tends to animalize man. Hannah Arendt wrote an important essay on philosophy of technology called The Conquest of Space and the Stature of Man. She wrote this essay 50 years ago, and she said then that in the future, the blurring of distinctions between men and machines would be a threat for us as human beings. In particular, men would communicate like machines. Human speech and everyday language would become formal and mathematical. The blurring of distinctions would lead humans to speak math like machines. And this machine-like language, this machine-like speech would lead human talk to be functional and to speak little. This is important, I think. I would say we have not arrived to this point. On the contrary, digitalization demands individuals to communicate as much as possible, and not with meaningless mathematical signs that would lead to functional speech, but with emotional language. The brain's reward system that controls focus, pleasure, and addiction is used to trigger communication. The language of emotions is the language that Silicon Valley engineers use to make people labor, to make people posting, sharing, and communicating in any possible way, and through the many possible ways that digital technology offers us to communicate. So as we see, we are far from a purely formal mathematical communication. Formal language, the language of machines, the language of algorithms, is kept in the hands of those who rule. For those who are ruled, for the users, there is no mathematical language, let's say. They do not speak mathematics, and therefore they do not look like machines. I would say communication by digital technology tends to animalize man by making him addicted, emotional, transparent, lonely, and stuck in the present. These five features combined imply a tendency towards the animalization of human beings. First, animal digitalis is addicted because digital technology is addictive by design. The smartphones, in particular, it has been proved that the smartphone was made in Las Vegas slot machines image. Second, addiction is very much related with emotion. And I understand emotion as something different from feeling, following Jun-Chul Han. Emotion is dynamic, situational, and with a very short temporality. It is more a brain's reaction than the result of something real, relevant, or objective. But I guess the key feature of emotion here is that it is performative, that it leads to act. From this point of view, is perfect for digital technology man as we want him to communicate, to remain active. Feelings are not a brain's reaction. Feelings, I would say, they are something different. They are not performative. For example, mourning, the mourning that follows a loved one's death, is not performative, leads not to act. Mourning is a feeling that leads probably to reflection or prayer, but not to communicate and to be active. The third feature of animal digitalis is transparency or the lack of privacy. Digitalization blurs the distinction between private and public spheres. Of course, we know that people will make willingly public their lives in social networks, but it's much more than that. We become, in the face of algorithms, completely transparent. So therefore, we become completely transparent for the rulers. Technologies of reputation can predict things we do not know. Like if we are going to quit our job, they can know it with a lot of certainty, or if a woman is pregnant. With this tool, coercion becomes no longer necessary for ruling, but ruling becomes much more dangerous for freedom, as it is, in a sense, an invisible ruling. The fourth feature is loneliness. But I would say, if I may use that term, it is a busy loneliness. Scipio Africanus, consul in ancient Rome, used to say, "I am never less at leisure than when at leisure. I am never less alone than when I am alone." I think he pointed out here that when we stop activity and are alone, we become in company of ourselves. So the opportunity to think and reflect arises. I would say the problem with digital loneliness is that it deprives us of reflection. It creates a loneliness, but a busy loneliness that allows no reflection to arise, because you have to be active, to have to remain active. The fifth feature, and last one, is being stuck in the present. Digitalization implies the reduction of time to the present. Being stuck in the present is another loss for our humanity, I would say, because it's a feature of inferior animals. Inferior animals lack courage, what the Greeks called timos. Superior animals do have courage, as the feeling that makes it possible to postpone the pleasant present for something pleasant in the future through a hard path. Timos is related with memory, experience, and projection to the future. Against this form of government and this new kind of man, I think we need to recover humanism, or we can talk about a new humanism. To put it simply, a humanism that emphasizes the superiority of humans over animals and artifacts. We need a humanism that accepts freedom, our relational nature, and our capacity to judge and act morally with or without artificial intelligence. Digitalization needs, I think, to correct the way it works today, as it serves not the user, but the Californian technological companies. Digital technology can be a real tool for us, can make life easier, and be a real tool that serves humans and does not extract benefits from them. How? I think this will be possible only if we abandon data as the main source of money in financial markets and digital companies, and focus the attention on the production of lasting things. I deeply thank the Executive Committee the opportunity to be virtually here today. To Tanghi Kamsahamnita, thank you very much.